But right now I'm joined by the Transport Minister, Richard Holden. Very good of you to come in. Thanks a lot for joining us today. I wondered if we could kick off by asking you about our Sky News report. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it. We found that some people are abusing the student visa system and coming here with no intention of studying and overstaying their visas, no intention of going home either. Why are we not monitoring or checking those coming in this way?
Well, I think this is one of the reasons the government's introduced some of those reforms recently to really tighten up those student visa routes, because there has been concern around this area for a while, exemplified by your reports today and your investigation. We have to tighten up these routes because you're absolutely right. People should only be coming on student visas to study here in the UK. There is an important part the UK plays. You know, near my own constituency, got the University of Durham, a lot of international students go there. But we've got to be in a situation where the people coming here are coming here to study. They're not trying to use it as a backdoor way to get around the immigration system. And that's why the government's taken pretty strong action in this area to particularly tighten up those friends and family coming with students, which has been a real issue. And I think is exemplified more broadly by your report.
Doesn't it seem to be having much effect, though, does it? Because those that we've spoken to say that essentially they know that there's no way anyone's going to try to track them down.
Well, I think there has been a big change on this in literally the last few months, in which students will no longer be able to bring family with them in the way that they could before, which was basically a backdoor route to entry, with those master's degrees and undergraduate degrees no longer being able to bring family with them. I think that's a big, significant change, which will hopefully try and address. This is a major issue, because it's something that I think everybody cares about, people trying to get around the rules, which everybody else has to go by.
But you don't know if it's a major issue, do you? Because you don't have any figures. I mean, we tried to get figures from the government to say how many are here illegally, how many are you trying to send back to the countries they came from, and actually the government doesn't know because it couldn't give us the figures.
Well, we know it's been a big issue because so many more have been trying to bring family with them, whereas before often students, sticking by the rules, would come on their own. Very few were bringing family and relatives with them. That's not been the case in the last couple of years, and that's why the rules have been tightened, and we need to keep doing more in that direction, because we can't be too vigilant. We have a proper immigration system, which is a points-based immigration system, which means that people come to the UK when we need them, if they're in those key areas, or if they're going for a job which we can't fill by any other means. But I think it's only fair and right that everybody goes through that system if they wanted to come and work in the UK, not try and bypass it by using study visas.
And I suppose there may be some of those who do come here and abuse this system that you may want to get to leave the country, and you may want to find accommodation for them. And the Baby Stockholm still is not up and running. This, of course, is the barge that's been brought to the UK. There have been delays about when it was going to arrive. It's a month late. 2 other boats had to be returned after you couldn't find anywhere for them to dock. The housing of people in RAF Scampton is delayed again. When is the Baby Stockholm going to be up and running?
Well, it's going through its final checks at the moment. It's right that we have whatever accommodation we provide is safe and secure as well. I can't put a time frame on it.
So is it safety concerns that's delaying?
But it's going through final checks at the moment, and that's with anything you'd want them to be properly checked out.
But no time frame is.
Well, the checks are going to take as long as they're going to take. It's important we get these things right, and it's similar with the Rwanda scheme. It's something that we've been really pushing on to try and get people out of the UK who have no legal right to be here. But there's a court process there, and I can't determine what that process is. But what the clear message from the government is that we want to tackle these issues around illegal migration. I've been voted 72 times in the last few months against the Labour Party, who did everything they could to water down those measures. I think it's really important that the people see a government in action. Yes, these things take time. And yes, we're being fought every step of the way by both the opposition and their friends in the legal community as well, trying to frustrate our efforts to get illegal...
So are you blaming the Labour Party for the Baby Stockholm?
To get illegal immigration under control. And we have just a very different point of view on it to the Labour Party, and I think it's really important that we take every measure possible, whether it's trying to get the Rwanda scheme up and running, whether it's sorting out new accommodation, because I don't want to see people in hotels. I've had an immigration removal centre put in my own constituency in order to try and help facilitate more people who shouldn't be in the UK getting deported. I think it's really important that we do that, because I don't think this sort of open door policy where if you turn up in the UK, you're allowed to stay, that's just not acceptable as far as I'm concerned, or in the views of my constituents.
So is the Baby Stockholm opening going to be delayed as long as the Rwanda policy? I mean, you mentioned that, and that's something that the government came up with a couple of years ago, and still not a single person has gone to Rwanda. Is it going to be that long?
I can't comment on the ongoing process of checks and things which have to take place, but it is my understanding in its final checks.
Okay. Changes to the alcohol tax today. Wine and Spirits Trade Association says it's the biggest rise on a standard bottle of wine in 50 years. We're right in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Is this something that the government thinks is really important?
Well, just on that, actually, for a lot of wine, it will actually be cheaper. For example, for Prosecco and things like that, things around under 10% particularly, those will actually be cheaper, up to 91 pence a bottle cheaper than under the current situation. Yes, what we're doing now is changing the system so that basically the more alcohol in a drink, the more tax you pay. That wasn't the case before. We'd had this labyrinthine, Byzantine system with 16 different alcohol taxes on different products. Now it's going to be that clear, the more alcohol in, the more you pay. But for a lot of drinks, which are very popular, such as pre-mixed G&Ts in cans, such as Prosecco, and those are going to be actually cheaper. And the other thing we've introduced, which is something I campaigned for as a backbencher, is to introduce the draft beer duty relief. And that means there's 38,000 pubs in the UK today won't be seeing that duty rise, because we're actually going to have less tax on pints you get from behind the bar than in supermarkets. And that's been a real issue for a lot of publicans for a long time.
But it's only 11p less duty on a pint in a pub, which is obviously welcome. But if a pint in a pub's costing you £4.50, buying it from a supermarket for £1.50 is always going to be the cheaper option, isn't it? It's not going to be enough to make a difference to pubs.
Well, the differential is going to keep growing. You know, we've seen it was 5% when we introduced it. Now it's 9.2% tax difference between the two. That is a significant difference. And if you ask any publican, is a 9.2% tax cut on draft beer worth having, they will tell you, yes, it is. And I want to see us doing more of that, because pubs are such an essential part of our community. We can only do this now we've left the European Union, because before then we had to have tax levels at the same wherever the retailer was. But this British Pubs Guarantee, where we're saying we're not going to see the price of a pint going up exponentially, I think is the right thing to do, because I want to encourage people into our pubs and clubs. It's so important for our hospitality sector, who've been really hammered over the last few years, and also really important for things like, my first job was in a pub. A lot of people here will have worked in the hospitality as their first jobs. And I want to see them up and down the country, not just surviving, but thriving. And that's why it's so important we have this lower draft beer duty on beer sold and cider sold in our pubs.
OK, well, we're going to be talking to the pub industry a little later on and find out whether they think that 11p duty difference is going to be enough to save their pubs that have really been affected by COVID and cost of living. Richard Holden, Roads and Local Transport Minister, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.